Mike. How are you?
Great to see you, Katerina. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. I really miss seeing you in our region when you worked in Guatemala.
I know I miss our Central and South American collaborations.
And now you're all the way across the globe in Frankfurt.
Yeah, doing some of the same work. In the end of the day, students are students, and stakeholders are stakeholders, and it's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely. And despite all the conundrum we faced with the pandemic, it's really nice to see you. Thank goodness for technology. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get started. Can you go ahead and please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, I've lived overseas for over 20 years. Um, it's funny because I never actually got on an airplane until I was over 20. And then all of a sudden the world opened to me, and I met my wife at an international school. Our kids were born in Qatar and Singapore. And so I feel so fortunate that we feel like the world is our backyard. So our kids really know, different cultures and people and the way the world works. And I've been so fortunate to be in schools that have valued learning above all else. And so that set me on the trajectory towards all the leadership opportunities that I've had, even going into the master's and the PhD and being able to apply those things. So it's just been such an amazing journey, and all the people that I've met along the way, like yourself, that continue to help me grow. And I just hope I can share some of this learning with others. Hence helping out with this book.
That is awesome. And I'm so lucky to have had the opportunity to read your chapter. And I know you personally, Mike, have quite an extensive experience in international education and in leadership, especially on practices that are based on systems thinking. And you do a lot of work actually consulting and helping other schools on systemic changes. And I just wonder, thinking back when you were either an aspiring head or a new head of school, what are some key points from your chapter that you wish you had known starting out as an international educator?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back even further to some of my first leadership opportunities. What I wish I had have known, or what I wish had have been in the toolbox. I actually didn't start my systems journey until later. And then once I started to look into systems visualization and complexity and mapping and all that kind of thing, I was thinking to myself, where has this been? Like, why wasn't this in my own education? Which is why I now dedicate so much of my time to make sure that this is a part of people's education, because I truly believe it's what helps us create the future that we want to see. So yeah, that's what I wish I would have had in the toolbox. And so now I'm trying to help people get that in the toolbox. And I was very fortunate to take a deep dive with my PhD on organizational systems, and then take a sabbatical to actually apply it in all kinds of contexts around the world. So that's what I wish I had known, because I was super passionate about changing the world. I love the environment. I love helping people. I just didn't necessarily have the toolbox. And I find that in a lot of places that I work, so many people want to do this stuff. They're just a little bit unsure as to how. So hopefully I can help with that.
And you're very right in saying that many people want to do this, but they may not know how. But sometimes we also don't have the opportunity to apply all of our tools in the toolboxes. And, international education provides that context to be able to do so. And you, having worked in so many different countries and having lived in various, regions across the world, what do you think it is about international education that makes it unique?
Hmm. I, I would just say the willingness to make a better world. Like that's the uniqueness, that everywhere I go, whether I'm embedded in a school like Frankfurt International School right now, or I'm consulting and working with multiple schools, or I'm at a conference doing a keynote or a workshop, so many people I run into want to have positive impact. And that, to me, that's the kind of environment my wife and I want our kids to be in. That's the kind of environment that we want to live and learn in. And I think that's a commonality across all of these schools that it's very inspiring. So looking at the thousands and thousands of people that are involved in this network, what an amazing opportunity to actually have positive impact on what happens next in our world, whether it's you working locally on that or it's a global issue that you're working on. Yeah, opportunities abound. So I think that's the commonality.
Absolutely. And you talk about being able to make a positive impact. And that can mean different things to different people, different educators around the world. Let's say US or Canada, any North American school versus international school context. And I think as educators, we really struggle with, as you so well put in your book, this schizophrenic existence of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. We have so much to do as leaders. We have lots of standards we have to address. At the same time, like as you said, we're trying to make a better world, make positive impacts. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, I truly believe it's not an either or. It's a yes and. We live within an education system that has certain bounds in it that we need to satisfy to open doors for our students. So let's just recognize that, and do the things we need. Now, are all of those things the best for learning? No, but it's okay. We can work on changing those things, but we still have to satisfy them at the same time. And then, as good friend and mentor Kevin Bartlett says, create the to-don't list. Because there's so many things that we could be spending our time on. And if we're going to do authentic experiences, we got to let some things go because it takes time. And so, oftentimes these authentic experiences get shoved into after school or a club or, hey, we're going to meet at lunch or whatever it might be. That should not be the case. Sure, for those super passionate kids who are going to work on it on their own time to extend it, absolutely. But actually, every student deserves the time to learn the skills, understand the concepts, get the toolbox to actually make a difference in whatever it is that they care about. So I just really think in finding that balance, as I mentioned in the chapter, you got to be the chameleon as a leader. Whatever makes sense in your context to balance what you have to do with what you'd like to do, and make that the mix that ultimately is the best you can do in your context.
Absolutely. And you mentioned time. Time is of the essence. Time is money, as they say. And you can't do it all. And if you really want your students to dive into that deep learning that you mentioned in your chapter, we need to provide that time and creating that to not do list. What can we remove from our daily practice is so important. Yet many of us seem to oversee that, and we just seem to pack on more things to do. And that's so critical. And so, Mike, I have another question for you. What's one other leadership story or lesson that you thought about writing? And when we told you about the word count for this chapter, you just could not fit in. But maybe this is a great opportunity for you to share another leadership story.
So many stories I would have liked to include. I think my first version was 10,000 words when I sent it in, which was a bit much. But these are the stories we share to help each other kind of move forward. I'll bring one up that I'm living right now. So, I'm not going to write it because I'm living it and it's still to be continued. I'm working with a group of students. I have a meeting tonight. And the 4 students are getting together with me because they've been given 15 minutes at a board meeting next Friday of the international schools in Germany. So the regional organization that's all the international schools in Germany. So these 4 students have been given this, and these students are both in middle school and high school. And they've been given this opportunity to pitch for 15 minutes this plan that they have. And their plan, as I mentioned in the chapter, these are some of the Changemaker kids. And they actually get an opportunity to pitch, hey, we want to do a Firestarter keynote at this year's education conference in January 2022. And then we want students to engage with the Changemaker conference that we're hosting in March 2022. And then we want to pick a group of those students who want to learn to facilitate workshops of what it means to be a change maker. And then we want to run workshops in January 2023 at the Aegis Regional Conference, the German educator conference. This is the kind of level that these students are thinking at, and this is the authentic opportunity that can be a game changer. So, in my mind, authentic opportunities like this, and it doesn't have to be on this scale, this should be more common, not the exception.
Absolutely. And I don't think there's anything more engaging than providing an authentic audience for our students and for them to really apply all of their learning. And I just congratulate you and the Frankfurt Changemakers that you talk about in your chapter. Kudos to them. Way to go. And Mike, I have another curiosity. International education is full of adventures. There's no shortage in, funny stories, scary stories. And regardless of this next story that I'd like you to share with us, whether it's an educational leadership lesson or not, what's a particular story that was life-threatening or hair-raising or humbling or hilarious that you always share at cocktail parties? Or let's just say that you would have never been able to experience had you followed a traditional path in education.
Well, this is when we realize how lucky we were when we were growing up, depending on where that was. For me, outside Toronto in Canada, and things were pretty good for me, and my civil liberties and my security and everything I needed from education to food and all that kind of thing was provided. And so if I didn't go international, I wouldn't understand to the extent that I do how fortunate that is. So, I often share a much longer story around my time in Russia. I never thought in my lifetime that I would be kind of stopped on the street by the Russian militia and have a machine gun pointed at me and forced into a van to be taken for a ride, which later I learned was a bribe, but didn't know at the time. And my wife and I, which, is a story that we tell at this time, it was harrowing. It was probably the scariest time in my life where you realize, you know what? Yeah, people around the world don't necessarily have the same civil liberties and understanding of what can happen depending on where you are in the world. And so, of course, that turned out fine. But at the time, it was a life lesson. And I truly believe the life lessons don't have to be that extreme. But you gotta get outside your bubble. And you got to see what's going on out there to actually understand and give perspective on this amazing world that we live in. And it's just given me further resolve to help people and to create a better future.
Wow. That must have been a scary experience.
It was terrifying.
I bet. And Mike, across all the countries that you've traveled to or lived in, what is that one particular spot that you always dream of returning to, and why?
There's so many places internationally you either travel or live, and I find that you're standing there looking around thinking, I can't believe I'm standing here. And that's, at the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, where you're looking at the Neva River saying, this is where the revolution happened, right there. and I'm standing here right now. Where would I like to return to? Geez, that list is too long. I'm going to say Cambodia. I'm going to say Cambodia because I feel like I didn't get the time that I needed in Cambodia to spend more time with the beautiful, amazing people I got to interact with when I was living in Singapore, but working with some groups out of Cambodia. I think that's where I'd like to go back to and understand more about their history and kind of what shapes that country and what makes the amazing, beautiful people that I got to interact with anyway.
That's amazing. And I hope you get to do that one day.
Me too.
Mike, I am just feeling really lucky to be able to publish this book and share our stories, because one thing I can really attest to is that, no matter where you study, you will never get to learn the lessons that we will be sharing in this book. So thank you so much for being a collaborator and sharing your story so that we can help other aspiring school heads and other international educators to keep doing what they're doing and to hopefully motivate them to explore beyond their current boundaries and make a lifelong impact for other students. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was so nice to catch up with you. And it was, I feel humbled and honored to be a part of this collaboration to share these stories. The world needs leaders that care and want to make a difference. So any way we can help that happen, I'm all in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at schoolrubric.org. Thank you.